Hi, good evening. Welcome to this is the November 1st meeting of the Somerville Historic Preservation Commission. It is 6:49 p.m. And I'd like to call this meeting to order. First, the legal notice. In accordance with Mass General Laws, Chapter 40C, the Somerville Historic Preservation Commission shall hold a public hearing on Monday, November 1st, 2021 at 6:45 p.m. regarding the proposal to create the Upper Central Street Local Historic District. The purpose of this hearing is to allow for public comment regarding the creation of this district. Written comment should be submitted to historic@somervillemass.gov prior to the hearing date. Pursuant to Chapter 20 of the Acts of 2021, this public hearing of the Historic Preservation Commission will be conducted by a remote participation. An audio recording of these proceedings will be available upon request to historic@somervillemass.gov. And as I mentioned earlier, there's one thing on the agenda tonight. It's a public hearing to receive public comments on the proposed historic district at the Upper Central Street Local Historic District. And so that's the first and only item on our agenda. And before starting that process, I'd like to acknowledge the receipt of, my knowledge, 2 written correspondences. The first is from Attorney Ann Vigorito of the law offices of Richard D. Girolamo, and she's representing the owner of 187 Central Street, which is one of the properties within the district. So that correspondence is received, and we also acknowledge the receipt of a written correspondence from City Councilor Mark Niedergang regarding this historic district. So that's also been received. Anything else, staff, that we've received that I should address?
Those are the only 2 written comments that we've received.
Okay. So then without further ado, let's go into the public comment. And I don't know who's keeping track of who's in line there.
So Mr. Chairman, could I suggest that you introduce the board? And I would like to remind everyone that public comment is limited to 2 minutes per person, and there will be a countdown clock. We'll let you to really briefly finish a sentence that you're saying, but it'll just be for a couple seconds after that, and then we'll move on to the next person.
Okay. Well, going across my screen, Mr. Bingham, let's each introduce yourself, starting with Alan Bingham.
Yeah, my name is Alan Bingham. I'm a Ward 6 resident and a historic homeowner, and have been on the commission for over 10 years.
Thank you. Mr. Falvey.
Hi, my name is Ryan Falvey. I'm a resident of Ward 2.
Mr. Chagnon.
DJ Chagnon. I'm a landscape architect on the commission, and resident of Ward 5.
Thank you. And Mr. Wiley.
My name is Adam Wiley. I'm a resident of Ward 2, and I am a construction manager and contractor.
Thank you.
And I'm Robin Kelly. I am the vice chair and realtor representative on the commission, and am also a historic homeowner in Union Square, Ward 3.
Thank you. And I'm Eric Parks, the chair. I'm a historic homeowner in Ward 3 and architect. I think that's everyone on staff.
I'm Sarah White. I'm a senior zoning and preservation planner for the city of Somerville.
That's everybody. Okay, who wants to officially take commenters? This process is that.
Yes, Mr. Chair, would you formally open the floor to public comment?
Oh, that's right. Yes. So this is a public hearing, and I would like to open the floor to receive public comments.
All right, so for anyone who has public comment, please use the raise your hand function on the computer. That is how I know you have something to say, and I will take you in the order in which your hands go up. I'm not seeing any hands up, but we have a lot of people here, so I'm sure that there are people who have public comment. If I don't see hands go up, I will unmute you individually and ask you if you have public comment. Ann Vigorito, I've unmuted you on my end. Do you have a comment to make? Ann?
Oh, good evening, members of the board. Sarah White, thank you so much for unmuting me.
Sure.
So I did have a memo that I did present to the board, but also I would like to add relative to 187 Central Street. I've spoken to my client as well as the architect, and, you know, and I know this sometimes doesn't always hit a historical point, but we are at a great housing shortage in the city. So this is a double lot as stated in my memo, and there is the feasibility of constructing 6 units on that site. And, you know, I've spoken at length with the owner as well as the architect, and there definitely would be many, many ways to incorporate some of the original historical elements and components of the house in some fashion. And that would be the goal here. You know, we'd like to try to, you know, serve the city in both ways, the housing shortage and of course keeping historical components, you know, to that end of Central Street, which is a lovely area. And, you know, we'd like to stay part of that streetscape, but with the hopes of, you know, having more housing as well. And that's all I have to say.
Thanks, Ann.
Thank you very much for allowing me to speak.
All right. Anybody else? Please raise your hand if you could. Otherwise, I will call on you individually. I see Nancy Baldwin. I'm going to unmute you on my end. Hold on one sec. And if you could unmute yourself on your end, go right ahead. You're unmuted on your end, Nancy. There you go. Oh, one more time. There you go.
I didn't
Nancy,
have a question. I didn't have a question.
do you
I'm
have a
just
comment
listening.
to make?
Do I have a comment to make?
Yes.
Well, I'm just hoping that the property next door to us, the house sounds like it will be the same, but I hope if they do get to build another building beside it, that it won't be too modern looking, that it fits into the neighborhood.
Do you have any comments about the creation of a historic district?
I think that's a good idea. We've got lovely houses here.
Okay. Anything else?
No, that's all. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, anybody else? Okay, I see hands raised now. All right, there we go. I see Ted Wiley. Ted, I'm going to unmute you on my end, and you're unmuted on your end, I believe. Yeah.
Hey folks, can you hear me? Thanks for having the session. We really appreciate you. We're at 392 Broadway. I don't actually know which, but I think we're in the zone here.
Yes, you're already a designated structure.
Yeah, we don't have comments per se, but I guess the main thing we wanted to do is ask for the benefit of the group. What would that mean if this area in general was designated a historic preservation district? Like, what does that mean practically for us?
For you, because your property is already designated as a historic property, nothing changes for you.
But I guess more broadly for the other folks that are affected, what would it mean? Like, I think it's not really clear from the document what exactly you're proposing, and we couldn't find any reference to what exactly, you know. So I guess for me as a non-expert in this, it's just not at all clear what this is that you're talking about doing.
Sure. So any other questions that you have, and then I can explain if you don't have any other additional questions.
That was the question, and I really appreciate everything that y'all are doing. I think it's great to have, you know, locals representing us and doing this.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sure. So really quickly, so what a local historic district is, really briefly, and if you want to sit down and understand how your house has been designated since, your house has been designated this way, I think since 1980 something, so 30 plus years, 40-ish years. What that means is that for certain exterior changes that you make that are visible from a public way, you need a certificate of, it's called a certificate of appropriateness or a certificate of compliance from the Historic Preservation Commission. And so the goal is to ensure that exterior changes visible from a public way are in keeping with the historic nature of the property. So if we wouldn't want to, ideally you wouldn't be taking down, like caps over your windows or modillions or dental moldings underneath your cornice, that type of thing. And that changes that you make are in keeping with the historic period of the property. It allows for change to happen. It's just changes reviewed and considered by this commission before it goes forward. And then you're still subject to, regular zoning laws and the nature of the building department's requirements for making changes to your building. But if you have specific questions, it's a lot to go into tonight. We had an informational meeting about this about a month ago or so, but if you want to ask me any questions, you can. I will put my email address in the chat and I will get back to you, but just so that for you, nothing changes at all. Like you've been operating under this rubric for probably 30 or 40 years at this point. So I will put my
through the chair, if I may, just to add to that, there are some benefits that Sarah didn't share with you. The Historic Preservation Commission is also a consultative group, and so when an owner of a local historic district property comes before us, we're able to offer some assistance in any modifications or changes they wish to make. And also, I think from Vice Chair Kelly would agree with this, being a local historic district does add value to your property. It makes it special. In addition to that, we have a provision for additional CPA funding, which may be available to people who have, or to owners who have a local historic district. And this was brought about as a small one-time grant from the Community Preservation Act to allow people to ensure that any modifications they do need or repairs they need to make to the house, to the property, could be done in accordance with the dictates of historic preservation. So that would be a one-time grant of up to $15,000. So there are additional benefits of being a local historic district as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bingham.
Okay, I am going to go through, I've got some other hands raised here first. Councilor Klingon, I've unmuted you, and looks like you're good to go on your end.
Okay, I just showed up a little bit late. Is Councilor Newton spoke, or?
No, he's not.
Okay, I guess I'd rather wait till after I hear from the folks. I just wasn't sure where we were at in the process, so I'll put my hand down for now.
Okay, no problem. Okay, so the next person is Jessica Snare. I've unmuted you on my end, and you just need to unmute yourself on your end. There you go.
Am I unmuted?
You are.
Okay. I'm here with my husband, so I think he'll probably want to say something as well. We have been to every meeting or hearing on this property over the last 2 years, I guess, and we are in a historic home. So I would like to say that part of the attraction of being in a historic home or in an historic neighborhood is that I don't have to worry about a home being torn down and increased to within an inch of its life and over 6 parking spaces. I believe that is code for 6 apartments or depending on the number of bedrooms, which I have a hard time imagining that can fit and meet the zoning requirements. So it's the nature for the person who called and said, what does it mean for me? It's the block you live on. It's the neighborhood. It has everything to do with how lovely this particular section of Somerville is. And I just don't think that demolition and construction of something that's that big should be taken very lightly or at all in certain areas. So I don't know if you want to say anything.
I agree. We've been here for 27 years as of last night, and and I have to say there's been no changes on the block, which is almost surprising. But we'd love to see it stay as it is.
And just for the record, would you please state your name as well?
I'm Derek Snare.
Thank you.
And sorry, this is Secretary Adam Wiley. Can I get a spelling on the last name so I get the notes correct, please?
Like the drum, Snare.
Okay, that's what I thought. All right, got it then. Thank you.
All right. Let's see, then I don't see any more hands raised, but I want to make sure that I get to everybody, just to make sure. So, Ann Beckman, I've unmuted you. Did you have a comment that you'd like to make? If you would, you can unmute yourself if you do. Okay. I will move along then to Dennis Greenwood. Dennis, do you have a comment that you would like to make? I've unmuted you. If you could unmute yourself if you do have a comment. Okay. Hank Anderson, I have unmuted you. Do you have a comment?
No, I do not.
Okay, thank you. Jonathan Kilpatrick, I've unmuted you. Do you have a comment?
Sure. Yeah, this is Jonathan Kilpatrick. I'm a resident of 21 Browning Road for the past 11 years, and a butter essentially of the proposed historic district. And I just wanted to add my voice to the case for making the historic district. I've attended previous meetings, and I feel it's a very compelling case. It's a beautiful part of the city, as has been said, and I wholeheartedly support the proposal to create the Upper Central Street Local Historic District.
Okay, thank you. Let's see, who do we have next? Oh, Meredith Porter. Meredith, I've unmuted you on my end. If you could just unmute yourself.
Hi, Meredith Porter, 104 Josephine Ave. I'm generally in favor of creation of local historic districts and supportive of preserving the historic features in the city, including those here. But one thing I would appreciate is if you could refer us to where we could find documentation on this particular district. If you could describe for us the area that's involved in this district, whether it's greater than 187 Central Street itself, or perhaps just for a few moments, just describe a little bit of the historic background here. I know you said you've had an informational meeting on this, but I wonder if it'd be possible to just spend a moment and say a few words about the background here. I'd appreciate that, and thank you very much for all your efforts. Really appreciate it.
Okay, thank you. Meredith, what I can do is I can send you the preliminary study report that we did on this. It's kind of a lot to go over in this time frame, but I can send that to you. I've got your email, so I'd be happy to do that. Okay, the next person is, I'm sorry, is it Nalin Mistry? Nalin Mistry? I apologize if I've mispronounced your first name. Do you have a comment? If you do, you can unmute yourself.
No, I don't have a comment, but only thing I like to say that can you hear me?
Oh, yes.
Yeah, that all the properties surrounding, basically, I know the whole district and whole street, but this property is located right near the main street. It used to be utilized for the commercial spaces. Now, if you are, and it has a larger lot connected to it. By restricting the property from development and tying up to the historical commission requirement, it will become very difficult for a developer or the new owner at this point to do anything with the property. Now, if that is the intent, then I think you are right. It should be converted to historical, district and include this property. But at the same time, if you look at it, all the properties across the street, to the next door, to the left side of it, I think they are all not the justified to be the historical. And that's the only comment I have.
Okay, thank you. I think for the benefit of the group, I would like to just state that being designated a local historic district does not prevent someone from developing the property. There are different ways that a property could be developed, but all development proposals definitely come under the review of the Historic Preservation Commission. So just a little bit of clarification there. Let's see, and I think that is everyone who has joined. So the next person is, we have, let's see, Councillor Niedergang. I am going to unmute you. And you are all set to go, Councillor.
Yes, thank you, Ms. White and Chair Parks and members of the Historical Preservation Commission. Good evening. Great to have the opportunity to speak to you. And thank you for all the work you do on behalf of our city. I'm here to speak in support of the proposed plan for an Upper Central Street Local Historic District. We've heard from many of the neighbors also in support of it. I'm a little disappointed none of them are here to speak out, but we did have a neighborhood meeting where several dozen people attended, and Councillor Klingon and I have door knocked in the area and spoken to many of the neighbors about it. And as far as I know, they're all supportive. So I represent, as the Ward 5 councillor, about half of the residents of this area. And full disclosure, I've been a member for 30 years of Congregation B'nai B'rith at 201 Central Street, one of the properties that would be part of this district and one of the newly designated properties. So I'm very familiar with this neighborhood. Combining the existing 8 single building historic districts is a big plus, as the whole is greater than the sum of the parts. This will put this area much more on the map in terms of historic landmarks in Somerville. Adding 4 new properties to the 8 existing ones is a quadruple plus, as it protects and preserves those 4 properties and would make the existing 8 properties 50% larger in the whole. These 4 properties are not only historic gems and beautiful buildings, but since they are adjacent to each other, I'm talking about the new ones now, the 4 new ones, since they're adjacent to each other and at the top of Central Street, they're extremely visible. These 4 properties do a lot to set the tone and atmosphere for the entire neighborhood. One additional benefit of creating this much larger local historic district is that hopefully it will encourage other property owners in the area who own historic homes to consider joining it. So that's what I have to say, and it's been a pleasure to work with Ms. White and with Councillor Klingon on this, and I'm hoping we have the opportunity to look at it in the City Council and hopefully to pass it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. All right, and now I have Councillor Klingon. I'm going to, oh, if I can scroll to you without scrolling past you, my goodness. Okay. Okay, Councillor Klingon, you are unmuted on my end.
Thank you, Ms. White, and to the Honorable Commission. Full disclosure, I have zero interest in this area other than representing my constituents and the neighbors there. And, you know, that's how it started out for me until I started to learn about historic districts and learn about the different houses that are over there. And the more it became apparent to me that, Somerville has changed, and Somerville is going to see a lot more change along transit nodes. But if we want to save any semblance of our history, it's important that we protect certain properties like this from demolition. And that's not to say they can't still build there. It's just to say demolishing this old house. So this has been a learning process for me. Thanks to Ms. Sarah White for kind of teaching me about historic districts. And I just, ultimately, I guess what my point I was trying to get across, if I have no interest, is I'm not somebody who even really thought. I grew up in Somerville, I was born and raised here. I lived in many different apartments in different neighborhoods, and I never really thought much about some of the older houses until now. And so, when I started to look around, especially 187 and its connection to the house on Broadway where the doctor had the hospital, and just the overall feel of that neighborhood, I realized that this is a gem. This is something that needs to be protected. So again, while we're going to have many changes around the city, I think this is an area that's well worth protecting and saving for future generations, so they can have a little feel of that history of where Somerville started out. So I'm fully in favor, and I hope that you will also be in favor. Thank you.
Thank you. Oh. Sarah, you're muted.
Sorry about that. I realized my chair was really squeaky when I shifted and I muted myself. Let's see. I don't see any additional hands raised. All right. No additional comments that I can see.
Okay. Well, it would appear we're done with the public comment portion of this public hearing, so I would close that portion of that. And we have nothing else on our agenda for the hearing. So unless someone else has something else to bring up, I would propose we close the hearing altogether. If anybody.
And adjourn the meeting?
Adjourn the meeting, yes. So I would entertain a motion for that. Mr. Bingham?
I'll move that.
Okay. Any
And
second?
Second.
Mr. Kelly? That's, so we're adjourned.
You need to do roll call vote, sorry.
Oh, that's right. I'll never learn. So starting off upper left-hand corner, Mr. Bingham.
Yes.
Mr. Falvey.
Yes.
Mr. Chagnon.
Yes.
Mr. Wiley.
Yes.
And Vice Chair Kelly.
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. So it's unanimous. We're adjourning the hearing. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Have a good night.
Thanks, folks. Bye-bye.